Hey guys! So, today we are going to answer a subscriber question. And the question in question is, Frederick, how do I know when to write what type of software? I'm struggling to figure out when I should write really high quality software as opposed to hacking things together and kind of just taking a shortcut. So that's what we're going to talk about. So let's get into that. You see, this is one of those times where I have to give you the worst answer, and actually it's both. There's two answers and I don't like either of them, so I'll do what most people don't want to do when they are in this situation, and that is to give you the answers and elaborate and give you just my take on what these means. And the answers are it depends and it requires experience. I know, right? I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is with this sort of question. You see, the thing is, guys, when it comes to knowing when to write what type of software and when to cut a corner, you really need let's call it a sixth sense for these sorts of things. And that's the sort of sense you develop by working for a while and experiencing different results depending on the choices that you make. And that's something that a junior is going to have a very hard time figuring out. It will take you a while. It doesn't take all that long, but it will take a while to figure this out. And usually there's a lot of pain and yelling involved. Well, not yelling maybe, but a lot of pain and mistakes involved along the way. However, to give you something more concrete and maybe something a little bit more meaningful, because hey, I can't just make a video about it depends and it requires experience, because that would be half of my videos right there. Let's actually talk about concrete things and see if I can relay kind of the mindset when you have this sort of choice before you. So what usually happens when I have to make this sort of choice, and me and my coworkers of course, is that we do what we call a risk assessment. You see, usually the norm is that you want to write high quality software, but you should also know, I'm raising my finger now, what a company decides to be, like what they perceive or that your stakeholders perceive to be high quality can vary quite a bit from company to company. Like, for example, even a really, like I've been saying in a few times that a startup may not have the sort of quality mindset that you might expect from a large corporation, but that may also not be true. For example, where today I'm writing, I have to put an emphasis on quality that goes quite beyond what I used to do at a very large company I used to work for. So it depends, but quality in general is a little bit subjective. So that's why I urge juniors that the first thing you should do is to, when you study, learn the best practices first and foremost. Learn what people consider to be just generally good things to do and what generally high quality software is. But once you get into a job situation, don't question so much, not to start off with. I know this is a risky piece of advice to give because it can backfire on you, but try to understand the context that you are in first. In other words, don't go overboard with what you think is quality. Try it out a little bit and see what the company considers to be high quality, because it's about finding this balance, which is the thing we want to get to here, this balance between what your perception of quality is and what the company and the timetables and the deadlines and like all that stuff, where is that sweet spot? Because it is a risk assessment when you do these sorts of things, and actually all forms of testing has to do with risk assessment. Do you write unit tests? Well, if you really think about it, why are you writing unit tests? Well, you're writing unit tests because you want to be certain that the code always works. But if you could also be certain that your code always worked, not without writing unit tests, that would be the best thing for you. But technically, like just practically speaking, you will not be able to write something meaningful and be certain that it's going to work. So you write unit tests, but maybe not for trivial features, which, as I said, if you're sure it's never going to break, then maybe you can kind of have a little bit of a wiggle room there. And that's the thing that we think about when we work on these sorts of things. Usually there's a time restriction or some reason as to why you want to hack things together quickly. A great example is the other day we were working on just a demo basically, So the idea was we had a bunch of stakeholders, and they were going to promote this product to their company basically. And these stakeholders needed some way of demoing features for the application that weren't implemented yet, because hey, we haven't signed the deal really, but at the same time they wanted some type of visual representation of what things are going to be like, or proof if you will, once it's all said and done. In order to do that, we had to, in a very short amount of time, produce a working prototype for these stakeholders so they could just look at it. Now when that happens, we just virtually throw caution to the wind and crunch together something as quickly as possible and just ship it, so that this small group of people can just have this, play around with it a little bit and see how it feels. Because we know that we're not going to support this long term. This code will be thrown away. So that's a good trade, because we can't go high quality because of time restrictions. That's an example of when you can think of that sort of thing about quality versus no quality. Usually, in my experience, it has to do with time. Time is usually the thing. On the other hand of the spectrum, okay, so when do you write high quality software? Well, that's when basically the reverse happens. If you write sloppy code or you want to iterate quickly, you usually do that because, as I said, you don't have much time and you're fairly certain that you will get this to work. It's low risk, if you will. The impact of writing a quick implementation is going to be very, very low. There's, as I said, low risk. That's the sort of situation you're looking for. Is it low risk for you to cut some corners here? If you answer yes there, that's great. Then you can write sloppy code. But if it's not low risk, then we start thinking about, okay, how do we find a sweet spot for quality? So what is quality? Well, it depends. If your feature is the backbone of the whole application, then you should really have some unit tests. If the likelihood of you getting something wrong is high, then you need even more testing. For me, one of those situations is I work on a fairly sophisticated algorithm. Well, that depends on your definition of sophisticated, of course, but it's the sort of algorithm that there's no deterministic way for me to evaluate that the algorithm is working, because it's a recommendation system basically, or a matching system that matches just large chunks of data and matches against different requirements to present a, let's call it a guess of how your transaction information has been, basically how your transactions and subscriptions and so forth have been doing for the last, I don't know, the past year or something of that nature. Let's just call it that, because I can't go into every detail of it. But that matching algorithm is going to be different, and it's going to have a different behavior for every person that uses it. Now that is not a trivial thing to build. And that means that I really have to test this. It's really important that I test it, that I evaluate it, because any change that I make to this algorithm can produce a different result. But I don't know if it's a good result if I don't evaluate it. Because remember, let's say that I tweak it a little bit and all of a sudden it's matching a bunch of data, like the amount of matching goes up. That's great, or is it? We don't know, because if I match more than I'm supposed to be matching, that's really, really bad. And then I tweak it again, and now it's matching less. Is that bad? Well, maybe not. Maybe it's more accurate now. Maybe it's now been improved because it was matching things that wasn't part of the desired outcome. So that's the sort of feature where you really need testing. When you have no, like as I said, it's one of the backbone features. It's not possible for me to be confident that it will always work, because it's too complicated for that. So what I want you to take away from this, guys, is when it comes to knowing what type of software to write, if you need to be quick or if you should go for quality, number one is you need to work for a while. You need to get some experience first and foremost. Number two, you need to have this risk assessment. You need to evaluate how likely you are to break something and go by that, basically. If you're really likely to get something wrong, you need to go for quality. It's that simple, even if you have a sharp deadline, because at the end of the day, guys, nobody's going to be happy if the software doesn't work. Have a great day.